I haven't had a run of 3 books in a row that I liked as much as these in a long, long time. They're really fantastic books, and so that was a real pleasure to discover. So thanks, guys, for that.
I was talking earlier about what great wide readers kids are, and probably the biggest thing in the last 10 years to have happened in graphic novels was the explosion of manga, and of kids consuming manga. And the thing about manga is it's not just that it's about people in another culture, and it's about people in another culture in a not self-aware way. I mean, it's not like Japanese comic artists are saying, let us present ourselves to the Americans. These were written for, the native Japanese market. So like kids are great at reading different stuff and at like rewiring their brains to embrace different kinds of people and different kinds of narrative conventions and different kinds of techniques and different visual languages. They're really good at reading through difference and reading diversely. We just need to let them loose.
For a very long time, at least particularly when I was younger and I wanted to read, oh wow, this is a book about, a Chinese American girl, I want to go read that. And I feel like books like that were surrounded by a kind of rhetoric of issue books. Yeah. People would say, oh yeah, well, oh yes, well that's our Asian American book,
Yeah.
And in this way that I hate, right, and the idea is you say, right, that it's what we want are good stories and good characters, and to be, right, mixed race or Chinese American or right, any other kinds of identities, right? Those aren't issues, they are a part of who you are. Yeah. Right? And they certainly inflect and they shape your experiences and they play a role in your narratives, but equally they don't, right? There are rich narratives outside of that too, and that interact with your identity in really interesting and exciting ways. So
I remember when I was
with you.
When I was a kid, because I'd come over from Vietnam during the war, and so there was like a small number of refugees in our town. And the librarians, I was like seriously best friends with all my librarians, and they always felt compelled to give me books to read. And I think they searched really hard for just the right stories, but there weren't a whole lot of Asian stories growing up when I was growing up. But I remember getting like The Witch of Blackbird Pond when I was 8 and loving that story. The girl is British, but she comes from India. And so in my head, the whole story of Kit from Witch of Blackbird Pond, she was Indian in my head. And I know that she wasn't, but she was in my head. And somehow I was able to really focus on that character, and I used her a lot growing up, like drawing strength, and went back to her story constantly. But now there are so many more books out there. And I don't like the idea that someone says, oh, you're Chinese, you're gonna like this book about a Chinese girl. Like, it shouldn't be. It should be, read the story, and if there's something in that story that connects with that person's life. If you're just any person and you've got a little brother or sister who's gonna be born and you need to find a book, that should be the book. It shouldn't be because you're Chinese or you're mixed race or something.
And again, just thanks to Susan and Lei Win and Scott. Round of applause.